How are we doing today? Good. Thank you all for your attendance. My name is Dhomonique Ricks. I am an Emmy Award-winning news anchor for Fox 4 News, and it is an absolute privilege to be here with you today. I have to say, we are happy to be here. So I'm pregnant, and if I don't say we, my baby always kicks and says, "Mom, what about me?" So we're happy to be here today. Please stand and join me with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag As we begin this luncheon, I would like to recognize our elected officials and our special guests from some of the area school districts served by NICE. Please stand when your name is called and remain standing until the very end. I also ask that the audience hold their applause until everyone is recognized. County Executive Frank White Jr., Mayor Sly James, Councilman Lee Barnes Jr., Councilwoman Alicia Kennedy, Councilman Quentin Lucas, Councilman Jermaine Reed, Councilman Scott Taylor, Councilwoman Catherine Shields, Mayor Nan Johnston of Parkville, Missouri. From the Missouri Legislature, Representative Deron McGee. And from the Kansas Legislature, Representative Pam Curtis. Board Member John Fierro. From Johnson County, Kansas, Commissioner Ron Schaefer. From the United Government of Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas, Commissioner Mike Kane. From the City of Lenexa, Kansas, Mayor Mike Boehm. From the Center School District, Dr. Sharon Nebelink, the superintendent. Mr. Neil Weitzel, Director of College and Career Readiness. From the Grandview School District, Dr. Kenny Rodriguez, who is the superintendent, Mr. Clark Vance, and 3 of his students from Grandview High School. Hey, guys. From the Hickman Mills School District, Dr. Carl Skinner, Deputy Superintendent, Miss Katie Rowe, Director of College and Career Readiness, from the Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools District, Dr. Cindy Lane, the superintendent, Miss Kim Smith and 3 of her students from J.C. Harmon High School, Mr. Denzel Gibbons and 3 of his students from Wyandotte High School. From the Kansas City Public School District, Miss Rashawn Carruthers, Director of Career and Technical Education, Mr. Mike Robbins and 3 of his students from Central High School. From the Liberty School District, Dr. Beth Heidi, the Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Steve Anderson, Chief Operating Officer. From the North Kansas City School District, Mr. Jeff Vandal, who is the Executive Director of Facilities. From the Raytown School District, Mr. Nathan Zier, he's the school counselor with 3 of his students that attend Herndon Career Center. And from their representative schools, Lee's Summit High School, Lee's Summit North High School, and Raytown High School. From the Turner School District, Miss Julie Conrad and 3 of her students. All right, please give all these future leaders a round of applause. Thank you all. And without further ado, please welcome to the stage Mr. Colin Gardner.
Hello, everyone. My name is Colin, and I'm essentially here to kind of tell you what the impact of NICE had on me. So basically, I was involved with NICE through their high school CAD competition, and I'm not really sure how I found it. I just kind of stumbled on it, and I was a junior in high school, and I was like, you know what, I don't really do competitions, so I'm going to try it out and see what this is like. And it was a really cool program. It was like a floor plan for a older lady. It had to be ADA compliant. It had to be connected to her garden. I was like, okay. So it was really cool, and I did that. I got first place here locally, and they told me to come to the iBuild showcase, which was at Bartle Hall that year, and I think it actually still is. And I went up there, and I go up the escalator, and it was just like, what is all these things? Back in sixth grade, I was like, you know, I think I'm gonna do architecture. This is what I'm gonna do for like the rest of my life. I'm gonna be an architect. It's gonna be great, and I'm gonna design houses and schools, and it's gonna be awesome. And I went to this nice showcase, and it was just like, maybe not. I was like, there was so much there. There was stuff with equipment. There was people that were explaining like their materials and how that impacts the construction process, and there was a lot of different people there that were explaining the different avenues in construction, and it was really interesting. And so going back to high school and then going on to college, it kind of sat in the back of my head, and I continued on with my architecture stuff, and I was like, you know, I'm just gonna keep doing this whatever. And I had 2 internships in that field, and I was sitting there like, you know, I don't think this is for me. And I said, you know what? And so I go back to school, and I find out that K-State had a C&S department, and I was like, what? They have construction, and I did construction. What? So I was like, I need to do this, and so I hopped right into it. And it's really interesting how like now I'm a senior and I'm about to graduate here fairly soon, and like how one day back in high school can like change your whole entire future path. And without NICE, I certainly wouldn't be up here on stage right now, but I really don't know if I would have been in construction, because it's just like I probably would have kept on going and still thinking about this, like, what if I did something else, but not really knowing what something else was. And yeah, so like experiences like the iBuild showcase and the positive influence that companies and NICE and all these different people have on young students, and it's just like really big. Like you got like, I would encourage you all, and like I said, like it's my call out to you all. Like I encourage you all to continue to support student initiatives and going out there and making sure people know what construction is. Because I'm from South Joco, and if you tell anyone that you want to do construction, it's like, oh, you want to go be a framer on houses or be something like that, which is completely okay. But without NICE, I would not have known that there were so many more avenues than just that. And so, yeah, so like, that's kind of my like big push here is just like continue to help out and donate and all that jazz. Before I sit down, I'll give a shout out to my fam that came and supported me. Hello fam, and my granddad's over there. Hello, I think we all should meet him. He's a great guy. But anywho, thank you all and enjoy your lunch.
Where's Granddad over here? Raise your hand. Oh, Granddad. Do you guys see the passion? Colin, thank you. I love seeing young adults with so much passion.
Thank you, Dhomonique, very much. I have been out on the road doing presentations about the airport and have seen that video several times, but I normally save the video to the very end because anything I say after it is like deflating altogether. So I'm absolutely thrilled to be here, and I want to thank NICE for allowing me to really be a moderator of what's going to be a great panel discussion for us today about the airport. But before we get started, let me just give you a sense of how important and how real this opportunity is for Kansas City, not just from the Chamber's perspective, but from every organization that has joined us along the path in moving this issue forward. About the same time that I started the Chamber, a year and a half ago, we took a deep dive into the airport, first and foremost with KCADC and the Civic Council, but then with many of you in this room as well. And we made a commitment at that time to go out and educate the public at large, but particularly to go into our member businesses and to talk to their employees about the importance of a better KCI. Today's actually, if you count this brief remarks that I'm going to give to you today about the airport, is my 90th presentation on the airport. And suffice it to say, we've been to over 100 different businesses within this Kansas City region engaging in a public dialogue and an education about KCI. And you know what? We focused on the economic opportunity that stands before all of us in this election on November 7th. And the opportunity is simply one that can't be ignored. One of the things that we think is critically important, and there's been some things written about it, is our ability to be competitive in improving air service at Kansas City with the most properly designed terminal at hand. The fact of the matter is, this is a fact, there are more direct flights being added in St. Louis today than in Kansas City. A single terminal will allow us to be more competitive to attract new flights. Without it, we won't be competitive. No airline's going to guarantee they're going to give flights, but they certainly have made clear, and Southwest has, that they're throttling back the number of direct flights they're adding to Kansas City because of the design of our terminal. We're losing businesses and conventions because of poor air service, and the bottom line is a better KCI, a new single terminal, means jobs for Kansas City, both in construction and beyond. And I give this example at every presentation I make now, but Amazon's the perfect example of the importance of this terminal to our future. As Amazon's looking for a second headquarters, it has 4 or 5 non-negotiable deals that have to be in any proposal. And standing at the top in front of us on November 7th is they want to be within 45 minutes of an international airport. It's fundamentally important for us to think through our economic competitiveness relative to our access to the world through air service. Amazon won't be the only one. It's the first that said it publicly. But we know for Kansas City to be competitive, to attract people and businesses, we have to have world-class facilities, both at our airport and all over this Kansas City region. You know, we took a trip to Dallas-Fort Worth over a year ago on a leadership exchange trip. And we found out from them and their economic development strategy is they say it far and wide that if you move a business to Dallas-Fort Worth, you can get on an airplane and be in any major U.S. city in 2 hours or less. So cities around us are using air access to attract business and people, and so too should it be in Kansas City. And think about this. When we were in Dallas-Fort Worth, they equated every international flight to the economic impact of a Super Bowl annually, $250 million a year. When I started making presentations in May of this year, there were 6 U.S. cities that had enough people traveling to Europe every day to demand and get a direct flight to Europe. We have about 300 people in Kansas City that start here every day that end up somewhere in Europe. So there were 6 cities at the beginning of the summer. All 5 of the cities besides us have now either announced or are flying a direct flight to Europe. We're the largest U.S. city in the United States that now does not have a direct flight to Europe, but has the number of passengers needed to attract a direct flight. If you're up at Terminal C, I was there yesterday, they've got the international area closed off. There's a $10 million, I consider it a Band-Aid, to fix our international part of our terminal so you actually can process people through customs and immigration. That might get us to entice a carrier for an international flight, but it's a new single terminal in modern design that will get us to have a strong commitment for that kind of activity, and that's what matters to the future of our economy. Needless to say, there are thousands of construction jobs that will be involved in building this airport, and those jobs are local jobs, jobs that can affect the lives of so many Kansas Cityans and can offer opportunities to young people to get into trades that they would have not had before, and we're very excited about that prospect. You know, I get to work in Union Station every day. Most of you have been in Union Station. It's an amazing example of how a region came together to move itself forward in saving it, but it was our front door to the world. It was the first experience that people had when they came to Kansas City. I gave one of my presentations at the Federal Reserve Bank here in Kansas City not too long ago, and Esther George, the president of the Federal Reserve Bank in Kansas City, described in the history of the KC Fed how a team came out of Washington, D.C. in 1914 to look for branch locations for the Federal Reserve Bank. And in their log of their journeys, when they visited Kansas City, they remarked about how impressed they were when they arrived at Union Station, the bustling activity, the commerce that it represented, the signal that it gave about what the city was about today and in its future. And as a result of their experience in Kansas City, the 10th District of the Federal Reserve has its headquarters here in Kansas City, and we benefit from it today. Our front door matters to our future, and we can make it one that we're all proud of. So as we get ready to get into a great panel discussion, I want to introduce our panelists. And before I do that, as I've said before, November 7th is a critical day for Kansas City. And I ask you to go out, talk to your friends and neighbors. People like talking about the airport. Please get them to think about a yes vote on November 7th. So our panelists are joining us, great group. Daniel Moylan is the development manager for Edgemoor Infrastructure. Mark Goodwin is the vice president of Clark Construction Group. Billy Clarkson is the vice president of Clarkson Construction. Derek Moore is the director of aviation at Skidmore, Owings and Merrill. And then Wes Stith is vice president of Clark Construction, and he is en route and will be joining us, so you'll see him slide up onto the stage. So this panel is going to give us some great insight today, and we're so glad to have them. Gentlemen, thank you. And I want to introduce first Daniel Moylan to kind of give us a sense of how the team has come together and formed and what they look like as a team as well. Daniel?
Thank you, Joe. Again, yes, my name is Dan Moylan. Thank you all very much for the opportunity to be here today to participate in this panel discussion. We're looking forward to it. When the RFQ hit the streets back in May, we quickly recognized the scale, the complexity, and the magnitude of this extremely important project for the Kansas City area. So we set out to put together a purpose-built team, a team that had international, national experience as well as local experience. Very important that we had a team that had local experience with decades of projects under their belt here in the local Kansas City area. So the team that we've got comprised today is represented here today. We've got SOM Architecture, Derek Moore here on the end, Billy Clarkson with Clarkson Construction, Mark Goodwin with Clark Construction, and at table 25 is other members of our team, Whiteson, a construction company that's been in the Kansas City area for a very long time. So we look forward to taking some questions here.
Thanks, Dan. So we've got some great questions for our panelists, and I think we're going to learn a lot about Edgemoor's progress relative to the terminal. Let me start first with Dan and Derek, and talk a little bit about the process that your team is utilizing and forming to ensure that the best possible design happens here in KCI for a new single terminal. When I've been out, I've had people ask questions of me. We need to be building this terminal for the next generation. So what are we doing to ensure that that is the case?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, and that's a fundamental one for airport terminal design today, because we've seen all too many terminals that have been designed in the 60s and 70s, and some even more recently that become obsolete with the rapid change in the aviation industry. So we employ a whole range of design and planning methodologies to try to guarantee that flexibility in the building fabric and the IT backbone and all of the things that go into these complex machines that are airport terminals. But at the end of the day, we also know that they are civic buildings, and as you alluded in your introductory remarks, they represent the places where they are, the cities, the regions, and the people, and they have to be that front door. So despite all of the other things, that's the end goal ultimately, is to make a civic building for Kansas City.
Fantastic. And as you think about it, what's the team doing, a little bit off script, but on this point, what's the team doing to sort of account for changes that would occur in security going forward? Some you are somewhat predictable, others maybe not, but how do you think about that in terminal design to make sure that as advances come in security, because security is actually the thing that sort of crippled KCI in its current configuration. Ultimately, when the wall had to be built down the center, it bifurcated the terminal, and the design never contemplated such a thing, but security demanded it. So.
Right. I mean, most of the airport terminals you go to today, security screening is almost as wide as the entire check-in area. Check-in is shrinking, security is getting bigger. In other words, the space within the building is changing. So you've got to have column grid that can't interrupt that. You've got to locate hard elements like mechanical rooms and shafts and elevators and that sort of thing in a way that it won't interrupt that morphing, that change that happens. But all of that front of the building, terminal stuff, every international airline, every domestic airline, every agency that's working on this is all trying to streamline those processes and make sure that there's an ever more what they call frictionless travel from the front door to the gate. So I think we're likely to see, automated bag drops in this building, and we're likely to see a change in the security screening. So it's much more you kind of walk through rather than the cumbersome process that we have today. But we have to set up the building so that it can change in that way and not have the fate of the otherwise wonderful existing terminals.
Right. Thank you. In respect to sort of the design, what are your plans to engage the local community and solicit feedback on initial design concepts? So you're just at the beginning of the renderings that you've given us, are really remarkable, but you're just at the beginning of sort of understanding how the design will be uniquely Kansas City. And so how does the public get engaged in that? How does the business community get engaged in that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fundamental part of our process is that engagement. So at the public level, we're planning design open houses, as we're calling them, where we're going to be able to solicit ideas. These would be in November, December, very soon, in other words, at the beginning of the process. We've put these ideas forward really as to stimulate that discussion in those open houses. And then following that, as the design progresses, we'll touch base as well with the community. As far as the professional community, we're building out our design professionals on the team now and we are engaging local designers, engineers, and architects. And Colin, you should also, as you progress in your construction career, continue to work with us and find a place for architecture in your future as well as in your earlier considerations.
That's good advice, absolutely. Let me switch gears for just a second, talk a little bit about the financing of the terminal. And Dan, this might go to you, and anybody else could take it up if you'd like to. But there's a fundamental question that's always been out there in this issue that we want to hear from you about, which is who pays for the terminal and how will it affect the taxpayers of Kansas City? And maybe, Dan, your firm has experience in this area. We're talking private financing, the mix of financing, but what's the model across the U.S. relative to who pays for terminals when they're built? And does Kansas City's model look different, or how is it similar? And finally, how will it affect the taxpayers of Kansas City?
Well, the key here and the most important point is the fact that it will not be burdened to Kansas City taxpayers. It is paid for through charges that are fees that are charged at the airport through various things such as parking, for example, or concessions. There's a thing called PFCs, passenger facility charges, that are charged, and it's a ticket cost, a minor ticket cost in the grand scheme of things, but it's a charge that for anybody using the airport, not Kansas City people that are not using it, but anybody that flies through that airport, whether they live in Kansas City or whether they come into and out of Kansas City, that fee is charged on their ticket price. So it has nothing to do with your ad valorem taxes, for example. It will not cost Kansas City taxpayers through their taxes.
And so suffice it to say, if 88% of the users of the airport are from outside of Kansas City, it's going to be mostly non-Kansas City people paying for
Absolutely.
A new Kansas City terminal.
That's right. If you fly a lot in and out, You're going to pay through your ticket charges. You're not going to pay for it in any other way other than that, concessions and parking, things that are used at the airport.
And if you transfer in Kansas City, do you pay a piece when you transfer through Kansas City as well? Or is
Yes.
that different? That's right. So if we got more transferring flights, that actually would help the bottom line in paying for the airport.
Absolutely.
And then if they bought, a burger or beer, then we're
Now you're on to it.
Okay,
That's right.
yeah.
If you use the facility.
Maybe I've got a new line of business that I'm calling
right.
here. That fantastic.
That's the best news for Kansas City, though. It's the people that use the airport.
And in your experience, and I think the aviation department just brought out some data on this, but Dan, I don't know if you know this, but in your experience where a new airport's been built, do the airfares go up like an exorbitant amount if a new airport's built in a particular city? Do you have?
No, I don't know the exact numbers, but they're very low, in the low dollars amount per ticket, for example.
I think the aviation department just put out a chart. San Jose built a new airport 10 years ago, and a study was done, and airfares went up in San Jose by the same percentage as the national average. During that 10-year period, KCI is really cheap in its PFCs. Our airfares went up too by the exact same percentage, so it just didn't really.
It's almost negligible in the grand scheme of things when you consider it.
Fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about construction. This might be for Mark, or any of you can take this up. So we're past the yes vote in November, because we know that's going to happen, right? We're going to work hard to make that happen. When is construction anticipated to begin? And how long will it take? And what pre-construction activity has to occur before, all of us, when you can visit, there's a lot that goes on before you visibly see something being impacted physically. So help us understand the pathway around construction and where things stand and where they'll go.
Yeah, we see the construction starting in the third quarter of 2018, a little bit less than a year from now. And the overall construction duration's a little bit over 3 years. So that still puts us right in the time frame that we've been talking about, which is prior to the end of 2021. As far as the early start projects, there are some things that we would like to get started with. Some of the demolition could start early. There's some site utility relocations that we'd like to start early. And there's really some things that need to happen before those things can get started. There's an environmental assessment that the Edgemoor team, along with the aviation department, need to work through with the FAA. And so some of those activities will be taking place probably in the spring or summer of 2018. 6 to 9 months from now, and then those will be activities that allow us to really do a full start, moving full speed ahead in the third quarter of 2018. And that's the plan right now.
So in the pre-construction work and maybe into initial phases of construction, how can designers and subcontractors get engaged to be given an opportunity to propose on services for the project, even those that are earlier in the process than the actual physical construction activity on site?
And Derek touched on our efforts over the last 3 weeks have really focused on our design team. Now is the time that we want to be meeting with designers. We have been, and we're going to continue to be. Tomorrow we have our second significant outreach event for local and M&WBE firms. It's over at the Starlight Theater. So we're looking to meet all of the engineering firms and architecture firms and professional services and geotechnology firms in the area. And like I said, we have been and are continuing to, over the next few weeks, really put together our engineering team underneath SOM's contract. And so we are looking right now to meet as many firms as we can in those particular fields. As far as subcontracting on the construction side, in November and next month, we will begin to advertise and ask for qualification statements on major trades, the mechanical, electrical, and structural, those major packages. We want to start to have those conversations even this year as right after the vote and as things are progressing with our design effort. And then those conversations will continue. We'll get some firms involved in reviewing our design with us and providing us some constructability comments. And then some of the smaller firms would probably be the spring of 2018 is when we'd look to engage really throughout all the trade disciplines for pricing and feedback. That's kind of the time frame for subcontractor
Thank you, Mark,
involvement.
very much. Perfect. Let's talk a little bit more directly about workforce. This is a major construction project, nearing $1 billion. In what I consider a single phase. It is the largest construction project by way of dollars in the history of any municipality in the Kansas City region. There's been other projects that can get close to that number, but they're multiply phased and likely a major infrastructure one. Mayors in the room understand, like sewers or things like that we have to get done. But so there'll be a lot of people working on this job, which is fantastic for Kansas City. So Billy, maybe you can give us a sense, and I know you're still sort of mapping this out, but how many people are anticipated to work on this project as it comes into being?
Well, right now the KC Aviation Department has done an economic impact statement that kind of looks at what kind of job growth is throughout this entire project, and right now that estimate was about 17,000 jobs created or people that will be working in association with the project.
That was actually Wes' question.
Well, give me a sense then, will there be opportunities, and I think this is an important one for Kansas City. I mean, this, not only will this be a generational change in aviation services, but the impact of the construction can have a long-time impact on individuals in Kansas City. So will there be an opportunity for individuals to get training or experience that's required to work on a project like this? Is there a pipeline consideration that's going on relative to this, which can be so important?
Yeah, and Mark can chime in too, but we'll have programs set up, a pre-apprenticeship program in the KC Academy, which we can expand on, but we're going to be pooling from the local workforce and allow them to come in and observe the availabilities of the specific crafts that they can work on, and they can choose their craft of what they want to work on. And it's going to be set up to where if they're going to say, I'm going to work on carpentry, we're actually going to set them up in a pre-apprenticeship program where they can work on carpentry-specific items on this job. So that way, we use the term a legacy impact. We want this to not just be a job for those people, we want it to be a career.
Great. And so give us a sense of when that's coming into being and shaping, and how someone that's interested in that, what they need to look out for relative to those opportunities.
Really that happens with the start of construction. The construction workforce obviously comes on when the construction starts. And so,
which is after the November 7th vote, by the way.
Right, exactly.
Largely I think those opportunities will present themselves. We'll be developing our plan and advertising our plan, but those opportunities will present themselves in the third quarter of 2018 when the construction.
And a lot of those are going to fall as we hire subcontractors as well.
Gotcha. And again, I think you mentioned this before, but for engaging MB and WB firms, local firms as well, tell us again, design and construction process, what's going on with that engagement today and what's happening in the near term.
I mentioned the outreach event that we're having tomorrow. That's a significant opportunity for the engineering and design and architecture firms on the professional services side. And then as well on the subcontractor community, a lot of those will be contracts held directly with our design build joint venture. And on the flip side, a lot of those contracts will also be held with other local large firms. And so really, we are right now in a process of encouraging the relationship building between us and the smaller firms that are local, and then also the smaller and larger firms that are local to build those relationships. The larger firms that are here today and others that'll be interested in the project, there will be M&WBE goals for the project that we will require them to facilitate relationships with the M&WBE firms.
And what he's saying is, so if we hire a subcontractor, we're going to put that in their subcontractor where they're going to be required to meet those goals.
And really, we use what we call a teaming agreement, which is an agreement that mentors and supports the relationship between those two firms. And it really ties them and ties us into a successful relationship throughout the course of the project.
Great. Dan, a question for you. And I think it's fairly unique in the way we're proceeding in Kansas City in a positive way. Does the city or the airport authority lose control over the airport by having a third party develop and ultimately finance the project itself, which is what Edgemoor is proposing to do?
Absolutely not. The aviation department will retain responsibility for the operation and maintenance. We are a development company that specializes in public-private partnership projects, which in many it's a fancy term for a development company that will do the design, the financing, the build, the operation, or the maintenance of a project, depending on what that client wants. In this case, we're going to handle the financing and the design and the build aspects, and the operation and maintenance aspects will definitely stay in the responsibility under the umbrella of the aviation department.
Perfect. Dan, or maybe Derek, I've got one more question for you. So as I've gone out doing these presentations, everyone's afraid that Atlanta Hartsfeld's going to be built here, taking nothing away from Atlanta Hartsfeld, except it's really a pain to get through. And then somebody mentioned something like Chicago O'Hare, and we could go on down the list. But convenience is always a factor for any airport. But there are a lot that believe that Kansas City is a very convenient airport. I just flew out on Friday, and I had a longer line for security than a lot of airports I go through. But the convenience in the future matters, and convenience in design matters as well. So how will you, as part of the Edgemoor team, contemplate a design for this airport that maintains a convenience level that is not Atlanta Hartsfeld, for instance, or pick your poison in your mind in the audience?
We all have our favorites, don't we? But the process, the planning process to date is led to a plan for a 35-gate initial build. That's a narrow-body 737 type aircraft configuration of demand for the terminal, with some expansion capability up to 42 or so. That's not an overly large facility in terms of terminals today. So I think inherently the building will be more compact than any of those ones absolutely more compact than any of the ones that you cited. Nevertheless, within that planning, we have to do our best to locate, for example, right now the bulk of the parking in the garage will actually be closer to the check-in as an average walking distance than some of the distances you need to walk today in B and C from the big low garages that they've got there. Once you're inside the building, we're going to try to preserve that ability to see through the building, so to speak, to the gates. Yeah, the distance will be greater because of the other reasons you cited earlier about the needs of security and so forth. But those kinds of experiences that make the current terminals convenient, like close parking, like seeing through the building, and having a number of gates really very close in the grand scheme of things. But the improvements will be that once you're through security, you will actually have some elbow room. You'll have a place to sit, and you'll be able to wander over to the restaurants, or listen to the jazz band, or use any of the other amenities. So I think the overall experience, those kinds of things will be far more convenient in the new terminal than just the sheer distance from curb to from the front of the building to the back. Because today you got to walk often. There's a lot of sideways movement. I know that doesn't count for everybody, but it's real.
You're not going to mention the kids' place.
So I won't have to eat my Starbucks sandwich on my lap in the new terminal. Is that what you're saying?
No, you'll have a full range of wonderful choices of things to do.
Thank you.
That's assuming you were able to sit down, right?
Yeah, I actually have a photo in my slideshow deck that shows a young lady on her knees having a sandwich, so I was the fortunate one that got to eat in a chair. Thank you all very much. Dan, the last question to you. So there's a lot going on. You guys have all said that. It's starting now. It's gearing up. After November 7th, it gets really busy, but there's things that are happening almost every day. Relative to what's going on with the Edgemoor team and its progress here in Kansas City with KCI, is there somewhere we can go as we leave the meeting today to keep up with you, to understand what you all are up to and what's happening relative to Edgemoor's work and the whole team's work?
Absolutely, Joe. We have a website that we put together. It's kci-edgemoor.com. Edgemoor is 2 O's and no E. Let's get that right. EDGEMOOR. So the website again is kci-edgemoor.com. Come to that website and there'll be updates routinely throughout the project.
Fantastic. Let's give this panel a round of applause for a great informative session.
Quickly, we would really like to thank the NICE organization for having us involved today. This is an organization that, you know, our project team and the Edgemoor team are committed to. There's a lot we feel like we can do for the NICE organization over the course of this project, and we feel like there's a lot that the NICE organization can do for us. Our missions and our community benefits agreements and the requirements of our contract are really tied very closely to the mission of the NICE organization. So we'd really like to, again, thank them for having us here today.
Fantastic. Thank you all very much again.
I'm joined now with Luke Dietz, who's the Vice President of the NICE Board. Luke, do you want to say anything about yourself?
Hi, thanks for being here.
So we are going to do a drawing now. Let me get my notes up to date here. This is for 2 round-trip tickets, vouchers, Southwest Airlines, anywhere you want to go in the continental United States. Okay? Now who wants something free? All right. Again, we have 2 of these passes we're going to draw here. You guys put your business cards in this bucket when you first came in today. Mix them up here. Okay. The board is not eligible, I'm told. I guess I'm not either. Travis Blair with Burns and Mack. Hey. Congratulations, Travis. All right. One more. Who's feeling lucky? Dig to the bottom. Oh, I have 2. Okay. Here we go. Dawn, is it Boucher? With Faith Technologies? Congratulations. And Gary will be contacting the 2 of you guys about details and whatnot. Oh, Greg, I'm sorry. Okay, so we're going to begin our presentation of awards. And we're going to let Luke take over and do that.
Sure.
Okay?
All right. Thank you, Dominique. The first award this afternoon is the Construction Education Award. And it's an award presented to the person or entity who has exhibited exemplary leadership and or advocacy in the area of educating our youth regarding the positive career opportunities in construction industry. The person today has accomplished this by actively participating in promotion and utilization of the NICE curriculum or its programs and increasing awareness of career opportunities throughout the industry, as well as promoting a diverse workforce, something that we're very passionate about on our board. We all recognize that the need to attract a young, diverse workforce is paramount to the industry itself. Our conversation today about KCI and other things that are within the region. So it's really my honor today to present the award to Mr. Chuck Burton. And we get to do it finally because he actually retired, for those of you that know him. But we were talking this morning, he's taught over 5,500 kids at K-State within the construction industry. And he really is a phenomenal example of what commitment to the industry looks like. 47 years of teaching, of mentoring and leadership. His endurance and strength have even captured in a photo in which he appears to be beating K-State in a wild wrestling match. So I assume that'll pop up at some point. But he is really a man of high achievement. In addition to his teaching responsibilities, he's done extensive consulting, and those services have ranged from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in writing and publishing manuals for the Corps of Engineers to the design and construction phase on various projects. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering from K-State and a Master of Science in Architectural Engineering from the University in Kansas. He's received a ton of awards throughout his career, and his wife Linda joins him here today. But I can tell you from a personal experience, he's had a profound impact on my career, and very honored to present with him the Construction Education Award this afternoon. Chuck. Sorry, I got in trouble. I wasn't done yet. Next, I'd like to introduce Mike Iamarino from Turner Construction to present the Construction User Award.
Thank you, Luke. So this is the Construction User Award. This award is presented to a person or entity that is a leader in the use of construction services throughout the local scale development projects throughout the Kansas City region. The recipient of this award understands and amplifies the relationship between the growth and providing a positive impact and economic stability within the region. The Kansas City Area Transportation Authority, also known as KCATA, has been selected to receive this award because of its ongoing commitment to improve the status of public transit by providing new levels of service throughout all parts of the city and throughout our region that really creates a true connectivity for our region. Construction is underway on a new transit center. This is the northwest corner of Bannister Road and Blue Bridge Parkway. The new transit center will feature a pervious concrete park and ride, free public ride KC Wi-Fi, bike racks, smart kiosks that really have real-time information on the status of buses, lighting and accessibility ramps for all. So in addition to the transit center, I wanted to learn a little more about KCATA. There are a lot more than just the buses that are in front of us on the roads, I'll tell you that. So I went over and I called Robbie. I go, Robbie, I'd like to come meet with you, learn a little more about you. You're such a well-respected leader in the community. So I did that. He's got a very unique career path. I wanted to share it with you. It started off being a social worker, program services, and this really gave him an insight into the critical needs of transportation for the people he served as a social worker. He then became Economic Development Director for Jackson County, along with Government Affairs and Senior Advisor for County Executives also with Jackson County. He served on the board for KCATC for 10 years, and over the last 5 years, he was board chair, where in 2016, he was elected president and CEO of KCADC. So I went over to Robbie's office. I'm sitting there, and I learned about Robbie's loss of sight 5 years ago. And I'm looking at the family photos in his office and all the accomplishments this gentleman has. And I had a list of questions, and only one came to mind. I go, dude, what gets you up in the morning? This is amazing what you've been able to achieve. And you know, Robbie's response was very quick and simple, and it was from the heart. He goes, I want to affect people's lives in a positive way. He did that as a social worker, and now as a CEO, he's affecting change. He's transforming the leadership of a bus company into a transportation company that is now an economic development business for transit-related development projects. You got a transportation business that's now a development company. Their next big development project is in the River North area, whereas they're a planned redevelopment of a park and ride, a retail and office complex. That's where the end of the, or the beginning of the streetcar is gonna be. So that's the next big, large development project. So yes, there's a bright future for KCATC and new development in KC, and I like to say as well for our construction industry, as we are nice, are very look forward to the youth that are here today of joining us and let's say getting on board for our journey to build a better KC. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and very honored and pleased to present this Construction User Award to Robbie Mackinen. Please help me welcome Robbie to the stage.
Mr. Mayor, they should have known better than put me up here. You knew I was going to talk, didn't you? Look, real quick, public transit is that one thing. It is that one thing that connects us all. Whether you use it or not, you depend on people every day who do, and it's a big deal. And it affects your business, it affects your family, your community, all of that. So public transit is that one thing, and we are the glue that can bring together everything from development, job access, all of it. And here's what's fun about the airport discussion. This Edgemoor team came down and has been down at the ATA for, what, 2, 3, 4 times now, which I'm very excited about, talking about job access and talking about child care and getting together with Mid-America Regional Council and talking about where in the city we can do job access, okay? It's a beautiful thing. I trust my mayor. I trust my city council. I trust Joe Reardon in the chamber. Vote yes. Next, Casey.
And yes, Robbie did warn me that if he got up here, he would take a few kind words. So thank you for all that, Robbie. And the next award, I'd like to introduce James Isom with Burns and Mack, and he's also a nice board member. James?
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon. I'm here to present the Christopher S. Kit Bond Friend of Construction Award. This award is presented to a person or entity that has worked to provide the necessary mechanisms, either directly or through their influence, to enable new construction or the rehabilitation of existing structures, thereby promoting and increasing economic sustainability and enhancing the quality of life in the Kansas City region. Mayor Sly James has been selected to receive this award due to his unwavering commitment to the passage of an unprecedented $800 million in general obligation bonds at the April 4th, 2017 election. He knew then, and he still knows today, that the city's backlog of ever-increasing critical needs must be addressed in a responsible manner. The bond questions were split into 3 categories: streets and bridges, flood control, public buildings and structures, and each required an extra high threshold of 57% to pass. Basic capital infrastructure will now be addressed in a more responsible manner thanks to Mayor James' efforts. Mayor James is known to live by the motto, go big or go home. Thank you, Mayor, for not going home. Please help me welcome to the stage the Honorable Mayor Sylvester Sly James.
I'm going to take a page out of Robbie's book and definitely say something, but one thing I do want to know is, Wes Stith, did you make it in? Come on up here, Wes, for a minute, will you? Wes was at where I was this morning. I was out at church out south talking about the airport this morning at 10, and I knew Wes had to be there for a lunch meeting, so he wasn't able to get here in time for the panel. So Wes, you have like 1 minute to tell them what you do, and do it well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hello, everyone. Sorry for being late, but you know, sometimes you can't split people up, right? So, but let me tell you who I am. I'm Wes Stith. I'm a vice president with Clark Construction. I've been there almost 22 years. My role on this project, I would be the procurement manager, and I also would be managing what we call SDG, the subcontractor development group, to make sure to ensure workforce happens, MBE, WBE work happens, small businesses, and all of that to make this project a success. I thank you for the opportunity. I will be moving here, Well, I guess I'm here all the time now. I didn't go home until Sunday, and I'm back today. So, listen, I thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Bear. Thank you, Craig. I appreciate it. That's me.
So very quickly, let me tell you about KC 5 Stars. That's our Amazon deal where we bought 1,000 products, reviewed them, put them online. And we've had a little bit of success. It's appeared in SeattleBusinessMagazine.com. You can check out the article there. I did an interview on Fox with Varney and Company yesterday. I did a CNN interview today. Time Magazine has contacted us. We're gathering some steam. But on the hashtag KC5 Stars campaign since October 11th has earned 149 million impressions. So the good news is that people are taking notice, and whether or not we get Amazon or not, there's a whole lot of people who know more about Kansas City today than they did before. The bad news is that, boy, that's a whole heck of a lot of product reviews that we had to do, but it was worth every minute of it. Last thing I'm going to say is that everything that Joe said, I double and triple. When we did our task force on airport back in 2015, I asked Joe to serve on that task force along with 21 other people. They came in with different mindsets. Some thought we could renovate, some thought we could do nothing at all. And at the end of about 14 months of hard work and looking at airports and everything about it, they came back 18 out of the 22 voted for a new terminal. The airlines voted for a new terminal and rejected the idea of a major renovation when they found out that it would not serve their needs and it would be more expensive to renovate than to build new. They agreed to backstop the debt on this and not for anything else. They agreed to expand here if in fact we could get a new airport built. That's what they want to do, is expand here. We need to get this done. If there is any decision that we make today that will have a lasting impact on this city for the next 25, 35, 40 years, this is it. It's not we can't take it lightly. It's not a joke. It's not something we can slough off. It's one of those things that if we do, we'll be great, and if we don't, we'll be sorry. So be great and vote yes on November the 7th. Thank you all for being here. I get to let you loose, Dhomonique. You don't have to get back up here. This is also my audition for television. So, have a great day. Tell your friends, vote yes, November 7th. We need more money. If you got more money, leave it. I'll take it with me, or you can call us and we'll get it, come and pick it up from you. More money, great airport, keep Kansas City's momentum going. Love this city with all your heart. If you don't love it today, you never will.